Welcome to Vintage SF. I'm Richard Rempel. I've had a rough road with R.A. Lafferty. I started out with Past Master. It was very interesting in the beginning, and then it lost its way for me, at least. Then I read Fourth Mansions. Once again, I lost my way with this one. With these two books here, I used words like confounding, perplexing, frustrating. R.A. Lafferty is a highly regarded author by other authors, and he certainly has dedicated fans. But I couldn't unlock that greatness for myself. That is, until I read the first story in 900 Grandmothers by R.A. Lafferty, a collection of stories, 1970. R.A. Lafferty's stories at about 10 pages became inconceivably good to me. The shorter form held Lafferty to a tighter, more focused absurdity. The stories that lean more into a plot are the ones that I liked. But you can even appreciate short stories which you don't quite understand what is happening, but the absurdity is not frustrating. It's not confounding. It's not perplexing. It's got a beauty of its own. There was another book that helped me unlock the stories from 900 Grandmothers. I remembered I had on my shelf the best of R.A. Lafferty, and the beauty of this book is that there are introductions to every story by famous authors. There's even an afterword to 900 Grandmothers by a second author. Neil Gaiman gives us an overall introduction and a bit of a history of R.A. Lafferty. These two books combined unlocked R.A. Lafferty for me. I'm going to look at both books in this review. Here we have the list of stories from both books. On the left you have the stories from 900 Grandmothers, and on the right you have the stories from the best of R.A. Lafferty. So if you take a look, we have a total of 43 stories listed with 8 overlaps. That means there's 35 stories of R.A. Lafferty. I want to highlight a few that I enjoyed and then give you an overall impression of both books. Let's start with 900 Grandmothers. Siren Swicegood was a promising young special aspects man, but like all special aspects, he had one irritating habit. He was forever asking the question, how did it all begin? They all had tough names except Siren. Manbreaker Crag, Heave Huckle, Blast Berg, George Blood, Move Mannion. When Move says move, you move. Trouble Trent. They were supposed to be tough, and they had taken tough names at the naming. Only Siren kept his own, to the disgust of his commander Manbreaker. Nobody can be a hero with a name like Siren Swicegood, Manbreaker would thunder. Why don't you take Storm Shannon? That's good. Or Gut Boy Barrelhouse, or Slash Slagle, or Neville Knife. You barely glanced at the suggested list. I'll keep my own, Siren always said, and that is where he made his mistake. A new name will sometimes bring out a new personality. It had done so for George Blood. Though the hair on George's chest was a graft job, yet that and his new name had turned him from a boy into a man. Had Siren assumed the heroic name of Gut Boy Barrelhouse, he might have been capable of rousing endeavors and man-sized angers rather than his tittering indecisions and flouncy furies. They were down on the big asteroid Providus, a sphere that almost tinkled with the potential profit that might be shaken out of it, and the tough men of the expedition knew their business. They signed big contracts on the native velvet-like bark scrolls and on their own parallel tapes. They impressed, inveigled, and somewhat cowed the slight people of Providus. Siren is being pressured to find profit on this planet. He is told of the living dolls. When he talks to the inhabitants of the planet, he is puzzled to find that they say they never die. Where do the grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on go? They go deeper, down below the home. It is like a set of Russian nesting dolls. The older the ancestor, the smaller they get. And the smaller they get, the more they sleep. Siren is brought down into the depths of this chamber. Generations and generations of grandmothers. He is hoping to find out how it all began with the oldest of grandmothers. Is Siren about to find out the existential origin? Reading from the book. Tell me, he pleaded in agony. All my life I've tried to find out how it began, how anything began, and you know. We know. Oh, it was so funny how it began, so joke, so fool, so clown, so grotesque thing. Nobody could guess, nobody could believe. Tell me, tell me. Siren was ashen and hysterical. No, you are no child of mine, chortled the ultimate grandmother. Is too joke a joke to tell a stranger. We could not insult a stranger to tell so funny, so unbelieve. Strangers can die. Shall I have it on my conscience that a stranger died laughing? Tell me, insult me, let me die laughing. But Siren nearly died crying from the frustration that ate him up as a million bee-sized things laughed and hooted and giggled. Oh, it was so funny the way it began. And they laughed and laughed and went on laughing until Siren Swicegood wept and laughed together and crept away and returned to the ship still laughing. On his next voyage he changed his name to Blaze Bolt and ruled for 97 days as king of a sweet sea island in M81. But that is another and much more unpleasant story. Lafferty looks at the masculine desire to conquer worlds, to exploit people, and he turns it all on its head. The reader accompanies Siren in an existential search for meaning and origin. We go deeper and deeper into the asteroid, to smaller and smaller grandmothers. And ultimately, the origin is a joke. It's something that we can't understand or that we will not be given the answer to. Is not life much like this? I think Lafferty is having a joke with us. Lafferty plays with time in a number of his stories. In The Six Fingers of Time, we have a Twilight Zone-style story where a man can manipulate the speed of time. But to accelerate time for yourself is to also accelerate your aging. In Slow Tuesday Night, we see civilization accelerated. Fortunes are won and lost within hours. Is Lafferty looking at the pace of our society in these stories? In 7-Day Terror, a child is able to make things and people disappear. It is a technology that is unique to being a child. Can another child make something reappear? This is a story of the joy and wonder of being a child and putting one over on an adult. In Interurban Queen, we wonder if small railroad lines would have interrupted the progress of cars. What if automobiles were prohibited? United States would be woven together with small towns and small railroad lines. No pollution, small communities, no architecture, the result of the automobile. It is an interesting alternate history. R.A. Lafferty is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He is an electrician, and at the age of 49, he had his first science fiction story published. He says that he started writing short stories to stop drinking. I can imagine Lafferty telling stories in a bar, and now sharing stories with all of us. He was a Catholic, lived with his sister, and was single for his entire life. Some call him the Bard of Oklahoma. So why did I have so much trouble reading his novels and found some resonance with his short fiction? I think it's about focus of ideas, focus of his language. I think in his novels, he starts with a focus, but then he moves off into too many rabbit trails. He can't help but tell short story after short story, even in his novels. Meanwhile, I'm trying to grab the thread of the plot and see where this story is going. The overall story, that is. But with short stories, there is more of a focus, less sidetracking. I've never read anyone who reads like Lafferty. Sometimes I feel like there might be a hint of Roald Dahl in there, but he is his own style, often short and succinct sentences, many large words used in simple ways, and a lot of made-up words. Sometimes stories seem like they're just a slice of R.A. Lafferty's imagination. Now, a couple thoughts I have about reading R.A. Lafferty's short stories. I think it's best to read only a couple at a time. You need to savor his words, to luxuriate in a confounding poetical story, to laugh along with Lafferty, and to muse about great and little things. I hope someday to go back to Past Master. I think that I could appreciate this book a lot more now that I've read his short stories. I'm still not sure about Fourth Mansions. So I'm happy to tell you that I give 900 Grandmothers 7.5 out of 10. And when it comes to the best of R.A. Lafferty, I found the introductions and afterwards to be enlightening. They raised the level of my understanding in these stories. I give the best of R.A. Lafferty 8 out of 10. Now I have a feeling that some of you have been waiting for me to get to R.A. Lafferty's short stories. You may have been laughing at my frustration with his novels. Do you share a love for his short stories? What are some of your favorites? Any suggestions for future reads? I have one more short novel of R.A. Lafferty. It's in an ace double. It's called Space Shanty. Until next time, keep reading and keep laughing.